Hello, and welcome to Geography of Animal Rescue in Mississippi, from Municipal Animal Shelters to Wild Animal Rescue, and by Hannah Gress. So before humans were here, the animals were here. And then ever since humans got here, they've been like destroying the animals' homes and putting them in horrible living conditions, and not everyone, but there are some animals that suffer through that. So where do these animals go? What happens to them? Well, in Mississippi, there are a wide range of animal welfare groups. Some are shelters, some are rescues, some are sanctuaries. Some deal with a broad range of animals. Some deal with a specific species. And this project is going to tell you what the differences are and what they do. So there are different kinds of animal welfare groups within the state of Mississippi. There are animal shelters, animal sanctuaries, and animal rescues. Well, an animal sanctuary is basically an animal that, for whatever reason, no longer lives in where they lived before. Either they were taken for abuse or neglect, or the previous owners just can't handle. They've gotten old, they can't handle it anymore, or the animal's gotten old and needs medical costs that the previous animal can't take care of anymore. So they go to a sanctuary, and this is where that animal lives out the rest of their life. A rescue group often works with animal shelters and provide temporary foster homes for adoptable animals. Rescue groups don't have a shelter. They are typically a foster network. They're often non-profit and rely solely on donations. There are special focus animal groups that focus on specific species or breed of animal, and many times these are perfectly adoptable animals whose original family was not prepared to provide for them. Some of these animals are seen as exotic pets, so when trying to adopt from a rescue, ensure that to check the local ordinances regarding exotic animals. Most cat and dog rescues require that the animals be vaccinated prior to adoption and may even conduct a home visit to ensure that the animal can be properly taken care of. A really sad part, which I've shown a picture of here, this is actually an animal shelter, not a rescue, but sadly, many rescues become hoarding situations. This can happen to shelters too. They become hoarding situations. Either the caregiver, they just can't say no to the animal, so it builds up, or it becomes an obsession for the caregiver. And it's an estimated 25% of animal hoarding cases each year occur at animal shelters and rescues. I wanted to include animal rehabilitation in this because that is a service that many shelters and rescues and sanctuaries provide. It's the treatment of care of injured or sick wild animals so they can be released back into the wild. Not specifically wild either. It can just be like if a dog needs rehabilitation because they lost their hind legs, that type of thing. That's the type of rehabilitation that a shelter would provide. To be a wildlife rehabilitator, most of them are wildlife, but to be a wildlife rehabilitator in the United States, you have to have a license and or permit, as it is illegal to possess wildlife without a specific permit. Bird rehabilitators specifically require a permit from both the State Wildlife Agency and the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. In Mississippi, you have to apply with the Mississippi Department of Wildlife, Fisheries, and Parks. The application requires a letter from a veterinarian who has agreed to work with the applicant, as well as a letter from a separate rehabilitation facility to work as a backup network. So, getting into animal shelters, there are two types, municipal and private. A municipal animal shelter are funded by the local government. They are often part of the locality's animal control division and are funded by the locality's budgets. They primarily focus on stray or abandoned animals. Unfortunately, due to the high volume that can be found in these facilities, they may be forced to euthanize the animal after a set holding time within which the owners, if there are any, may go in and retrieve the animal. For a private shelter, they often partner with the municipality's animal control to provide official sheltering for the animals or to provide additional sheltering. A good example of this is the city of Gulfport and the Humane Society of South Mississippi. The city's animal control partners with the HSSM to provide shelter for animals they pick up. Most private shelters act as an additional animal housing facility and take in surrendered animals from individuals who can no longer take care of them, or even animals from other shelters that do not have the room to house them. There is generally a board of overseers that can enact bylaws that dictate details regarding the type of animals they take in and for how long, as well as many other things. These shelters are mostly non-profits that rely on donations, and they can provide more services than municipals, such as like a spay and neuter clinics and vaccinations. Because of that, the adoption fees for private shelters may be higher than municipal shelters. Some municipal shelters often ask their adopters to name their price for adoption fees to encourage and promote adoption from municipal shelters. The Society for Prevention of Cruelty to Animals, as well as humane societies, can be found across the United States, but they are not connected to each other or even part of a parent organization, nor does their name mean that they have any specific shelter classification or specific bylaws. I just wanted to include that because they're, like, for the Humane Society in South Mississippi Humane Society, it's not part of the parent organization, or there isn't a parent organization. They just take the name because that's, they want to promote animal welfare, and they know that humane societies and SPCAs often do that. Okay, so the two other main types of shelters are no-kill and open admission. These are like super important to know the differences of. So, and the open admission will not turn away any animal due to lack of space, but they often take in aggressive or ill animals. Some of these animals have no hope of further adoption. They can run aggressive adoption or spay and neuter campaigns in order to make room for incoming animals, but like with municipal animal shelters, they may be forced to euthanize animals due to high intake numbers if their campaigns are not successful as they need them to be, or if the animal is just going to continue to suffer. They keep the mindset that a short and painless death is better than suffering on the streets. The other type is no-kill. These shelters do not euthanize animals that they deem as adoptable. However, this can have its own drawbacks. They often reject animals if they don't have room or if they do not believe the animal is a viable candidate for adoption for whatever reason. These type of shelters often become overcrowded and have sick animals that go untreated due to the high intake numbers. So the first thing to create this project, first thing I needed to do was to compile a master list of all the animal rescue shelters and sanctuaries within the state of Mississippi that were still open. There were a couple websites that had some lists already. They weren't complete. And to continue on those lists, I would use Google. I even used Google Maps, and I just searched for all animal rescue sanctuaries or shelters using those keywords. Most of what I found were like veterinary clinics or animal hospitals, and while they may partner with rescue groups and sanctuaries and shelters, they aren't, so I took them off the list. And then I had to use Excel to create the master lists. One of the things I wanted to do when creating a master list was I had to ask a couple questions. Is it still in operation? What type of organization is it? A shelter, a rescue? Is it a sanctuary? Is it a rehabilitator? What if it is a shelter? What type is it? Is it a municipal? Is it a nonprofit? Is it a no-kill? Is it an open admission? What is the address? If there is a physical address, what city did it come in? And what type of animals did they take in? From the master list, I created an animal shelter list, and that I divided into no-kill, open admission, unspecified. If a municipal animal shelter was unspecified, whether it was a no-kill or open admission, I listed it under open admission, just because that is most common with municipal shelters. The second additional list I made was to divide and categorize the master list. It was divided into shelters, rescues, and sanctuaries. Any animals that were fostered that did not have a physical shelter, they were considered to be rescue organizations. After collecting all the data, I got to work on creating the map, and that really helped with understanding the data. I used ArcGIS Pro, and I created a couple different feature classes for each type that I categorized. I used, which you'll see on the next slide, and then from that map, I was able to really analyze the geography of it, like where is it? Is it primarily in urban areas? Is it primarily in rural areas? What is the most common type? Like that type of stuff. So this is the map of all the animal welfare groups within the state of Mississippi. Even with all the different types included, you can still see there's a large area where there are no welfare groups. Other than that, they seem to be spaced relatively close-ish apart. Like within driving distance, you can get to one of them, but they are different types in there. This is the specifically open admission animal shelters. Just a reminder, open admission shelters do euthanize animals based on the health and how long they've been in the shelter, as well as other factors. There are a total of 18 open admission shelters within the state of Mississippi. Most are municipal shelters, though some are private organizations. When I began this project, I believed that the open admission shelters would primarily be municipal due to the trend of private organizations transferring to no-kill shelters. However, there are still some private organizations that are still operating under open admission. And as you can see, I put in the name of the shelter, and then I included the city where it's located. These are the no-kill shelters. Just a reminder, these take in a limited amount of animals, but they don't euthanize any animal they deem adoptable. There is a large gap in the middle of the state where there are 0 no-kill shelters. The northernmost part of the state has the highest concentration, you can see, and the lowest section of the state has several no-kill shelters, but they are spaced much farther apart than those located in the northern section of the state. Originally, when I started the project, my assumption would be that the no-kill shelters would be mainly private shelters with little to no municipal shelters in this group, and that they would be located primarily in urban areas, which there are some that are, I wouldn't exactly call them urban areas, but most of them center around some city. The municipal shelters are included in this group, but they are the minority. So this is the unspecified animal shelters. These shelters did not list whether they no-kill or open admission, so I just put them under unspecified. There are a lot that don't broadcast what they are, so as you can see on this map, there's no relatively high concentration. There are some that are grouped relatively close together, but there's not like multiple within driving distance. These are all the animal rescue groups within the state of Mississippi. There are definitely more rescue groups in Mississippi than there are any other type of animal welfare group. These groups, they work primarily, these are individuals working out of their home to foster or rehabilitate animals. There are a lot in the northern part of the state, and in the southern part of the state they are concentrated around cities, which really fits my original assumption, was that most animal welfare groups would be urban and not rural. And this really fits with that, as you see they're centered around cities with just a few that aren't. These are the rest of the names of the rescue groups. I just want to include them. I feel like it's important that we all know their name. And if you need one near you, like they have the cities listed as well. This is the animal sanctuary map. This is the smallest concentration. Most are, I mean, there's not really a concentration of them anywhere. I took the liberty of including myself in there due to my wife and I rescuing cats. We are located in Gulfport, so just a little nice. This is the bird rescue. There's only one bird rescue in the state of Mississippi, and it's called Feathered Gardens Aviary, and it's located in Gulfport. It specifically rescues and rehabilitates parrots and other birds. It also takes in other animals when shelters are full. This is Central Mississippi Turtle Rescue, located south of Jackson. Its name shows its location, really. It is the only specific turtle or tortoise rescue in the state. It rescues and rehabilitates specifically injured, sick, abused, neglected, or abandoned turtles and tortoises. These are rescues specific for wildlife. As you can see, there are some on the coast. There's one that's in Gulfport, I believe. That's the Institute for Marine Mammal Studies. They deal specifically with marine mammals, specifically dolphins. Most of them deal with mammals. Some don't specify, but very few deal with reptiles and birds. And some specifically only deal with indigenous species. These are the dog rescues. I wanted to include this because there are a lot of rescues that specifically deal with dogs or specific dog breeds, as you can see here on the left. Most are located in the northern section of Mississippi, with only 4 located around or south of Jackson. The majority of these don't focus on dog breeds, but there are 5 that do. Belly Rubs Basset Rescue focuses solely on Basset Hounds. American Brussels Griffins Rescue Alliance focuses solely on American Brussels and Griffin breeds. B is for Bullies focuses solely on Bulldogs. Shaw Pit Bull Rescue Incorporated and Just Cause Rescue focus on pit bulls, but they don't turn away any other breed. These are the large animal capacity shelters or rescue groups. It's pretty sad. There's only 6 in the state of Mississippi that have the capacity to shelter large animals. This map details the location. One that does not house, there's only one that does not house companion animals, and that is Healing Horses Ranch Incorporated, which is a specific horse rescue and rehabilitation center. The remaining 5 house companion animals as well as large animals, and the large animals can range from pigs to donkeys to horses. As you can see, they're spaced really far apart, so if you had a large animal that you rescued and you need a place to bring it, like, you would have to drive a while in the state of Mississippi to find it. So this is my presentation. Overall, there was a low amount of animal sanctuaries and large animal capacity, as well as a low amount of wildlife groups or any group willing to deal with reptiles as well. There is a large area with no animal welfare groups whatsoever within it. Most animal rescue organizations or welfare groups deal specifically with companion animals. Very few deal with anything that you would not consider a companion animal. There are more rescue groups in Mississippi than there are any other welfare group. And there are a lot of dog-specific animal rescues, but no cat-specific animal rescues. Just really want to take this time to promote adopting from your local shelter and to be kind to animals. They didn't ask us to move into their home or for them to be relocated. So just remember that whenever you see a stray animal looking for food. These are all the references I used, and thank you guys for listening.